Okay. Hello. Let's see. I'm going to say okay to that. Let me put an earbud in just because sometimes the sound is better and get that connected. If it's going to. Ladies and men, if there are men listening. The intent was that I was going to just come on and share a short little blurb about how hysteria is connected to feminine edge. In the hours since, and quite literally before I began this live stream, so much more is coming through. And so I want to say, first of all, I welcome your comments, your questions, your engagement. And this live stream has actually evolved and morphed into a teaching, just the way that I would teach if you were with me in one of my classes, courses, programs. There's a lot that wants to be said. And so if you are commenting, and please do, please engage. If and when you do, either make it clear or mark within yourself what we're speaking about, because sometimes when I go back and read comments, I'm not sure where I was in the transmission. So I would love to engage with you. Help us both by making it really clear which piece I'm speaking about. And I'm going to go through the whole teaching and then I'll check questions and comments at the end. So, and if you're watching this on the replay, I will still answer your questions and comments when you type them in and when I check back in. Before I begin with my notes, I'm going to say this. Hysteria, as I understand it, 100% has been overdone, overused, over implemented in the ways that women have been classified as being hysterical, and the subsequent treatment of women for being hysterical. On the other side, the nature of hysteria and what it represents deeper in the feminine system is very real. And as I go through my teaching, I hope, I feel, I do believe you'll understand how to tease those threads apart. I've spoken this when I've taught before, and I'll say it here again because it relates. Within our DNA, there is the pure strand of the energetic, of the signature, of the divine design. And there is a strand of human history and evolution that has conditioning and programming and imprints and false truths in it. And these are interwoven. My intention today, at least in part today, is to begin to tease these threads apart. And so that first disclaimer, which is I am not endorsing the history of hysteria being used against and harming women. And I'm also saying that its underlying energetics and signature have truth in them. Here's how. Okay, so we're going to go into, I have notes. I'm going to work from my notes. And just bear with me a moment while I get back to that space. Okay, so here comes the teaching. Thank you for being with me. I know this is a very big piece of feminine lineage, and it's time for us to tease, as I said, those pieces apart. What led me into this is partly having my own experience of seemingly simple frustration, agitation, feeling as the feminine edge material is coming through, as I'm opening and inviting other women into this portal, feeling on edge. And sometime through the night last night into the early morning, the word hysteria dropped in. And on its surface, if we just look at the history of hysteria, it really is a woman who is going over the edge. She's over the edge. She's on edge, right? All of these could relate to the lineage of feminine hysteria. So, hysteria is energy that is bound within the feminine system. This leads to what has been defined as hysteria. It is energy that is bound, as in a bind, not a bonded connection, but a bind. It is bound, it is enslaved, it is not free to move about within the feminine body and sexuality and system as it is designed to. So we are moving forward with the understanding that hysteria is both a real occurrence in the feminine system, as well as one that was used to scapegoat and control women throughout history. Her sexuality, her mysticism, her creational energies, her feminine edge, which caused fear in those around her not in tune with these energetics. Hysteria was amplified by the efforts to control feminine expression, divinity, and sexuality. And I'll touch upon it later. Woven into that also is feminine magic. We are uniquely designed, and I'm sure I'm going to say this, we are uniquely designed to craft magic. And even that phrase, to craft magic, to create magic, even that has become tainted through time. And if you peel back those layers of oppression and judgment and demonization, feminine magic is foundational to who we are as women. We are naturally designed to be in partnership with the earth and divinity and to land that here and materialize it. The origin of the word mother, matter, materialize. At the lower levels, hysteria materializes as frustration, anxiety, and stagnation. Lower levels meaning if this is off the charts, over the edge hysteria, the lower kind of more not invisible or subliminal, but just kind of less obvious and loud. It materializes. There's that word matter again, right? Mother, as frustration, anxiety, and stagnation. It may incorporate an unconscious turning away from the self. Ancients dating back to BC Egypt understood and labeled hysteria as dysfunction of the uterus. They believed that the uterus would move around and become displaced within a woman's body. And so, to fix this, her melancholy, her being over the edge, her unhappiness, her depression, perhaps even her cosmic or earth magic, to fix this, they would use a mixture of pungent fragrances and sweet smelling fragrances. And if the uterus was believed to be too high, and you can imagine if it's too high, she's off the charts in this high, intense, almost maybe screaming, moaning energy. So if it's too high, then they would use pungent fragrances at the opening of the vagina and sweet fragrances at the nose and mouth to draw the uterus down. If the uterus was considered too low, and you could imagine stagnation, depression, disconnect, inability to engage, then they would place the pungent smelling fragrances at her nose and mouth, and the sweet, like you've heard of smelling salts, whether they were pungent or sweet, those would be placed at the opening of her vagina to get the uterus to lift. So this is the earliest known origin and relationship with feminine hysteria that I came across in just really quickly looking into this. And so I'll add a disclaimer that if any woman watching has really delved into this, you may have even deeper resource. I'm really just beginning to get into it, and I can feel it energetically. I can feel it in my system. I could name women in my world, in my lineage, in my lifetime in my now that I can see the resonance and the residues of hysteria still within us, including myself. Because as I said at the beginning, this began with my own experience over the last 24 hours. Additionally, there were judgments against this woman and the validity or the wholeness, the fullness, the rightness of her woman because of it. Following this time in history were periods of belief that hysteria is related to or caused by demonic possession, the witches, dysfunction in the nervous system that she needed to be regulated, dysfunction and something not right in the brain, absence of sexual pleasure. Even in the early times of AD, they were talking about how a woman would be led to hysteria if she had no sexual outlet. And specifically throughout times in history, this was connected to single women or widowed women. And so then the answer became to quickly get her married so that she could be in an appropriate relationship container, authorized use of her sexuality. So we notice that from the start, hysteria has been tied to sexuality, our reproductive system, our sexual energies, our creative juice, which are all one and the same. There was a fear of, or there was, it was believed to be that the woman was in an unnatural relationship with the supernatural. And here's where the feminine magic comes in. And that can be through art, through creativity, through the expression of voice, through making love, through ritual or ceremony, through sisterhood. There are so many pathways that feminine magic and our creative sexual life force would naturally be channeled. And at different moments and stages and ages of history, it was continually being thwarted. Because of the fear, because of these beliefs, it resulted in exorcisms, witch hunts, women being put to death, inhumane treatment, whether that was physically, emotionally, mentally, sexually, institutionalization, which we know included shock treatment and a number of other just horrific experiences for women. And I can't remember the name of the movie, but there's a literal movie that was made about the invention of the vibrator, which was intended to ease this hysteria, this sexual intensity, this sometimes melancholy. Melancholy was mentioned over and over and over again as I started to research this. Melancholy. These were treatments that were intended to fix hysteria, to make it stop. And what you'll notice in the underlying signature is it was truly, whether consciously, intentionally or not, to stop the expression of pure feminine energy. The true signature of feminine hysteria feels connected to the absence of her fully owned and self-possessed ability to express, to orgasm, to voice, to create, to make love, which is not to say caused by her. So I want to be very clear. Even if she doesn't have the ability to consciously claim and live, whether that's through her environment, externally, her internal landscape, when a woman doesn't have that, it will induce some level of hysteria in the system. And I want to be super clear. I'm not saying a woman brings it on herself. Throw that out. It was understood and diagnosed by some, in whole or in part, that a woman who is experiencing hysteria was not able to be in her full expression of woman. In this case, specifically, her sexuality. So she was then encouraged and often forced into marriage and motherhood so she could engage her sexual energy appropriately. I'll pause here and say, and I'm just remembering that she showed up for me yesterday. I've had probably 4 moments in my life when whatever is happening, and it's not a super conscious thing, it's almost like it rises up from deep within my belly, where I see and feel and hear a screaming woman. Feel that. A screaming woman who is within my own psyche. She's not outside of me. Nobody's doing something to her. It's all internal. And what I have learned over time is that this screaming woman is at her breaking point. She's at the edge of something that has been true and consistent in her life, and she can no longer hold that. She cannot tolerate it. And the flip side to that would be that there is something she so deeply desires and is designed to live, to experience, to express, to orgasm, to create, to birth, to make love with on a mystical level, that the frustration of that not coming through begins to build in her system. These are the underlying threads of what we have come to know as hysteria. And I'm going to take you there as we continue on. So stay with me. Each and all of these diagnoses touch upon a truth, but also hold only one fractal of the energetics truly unfurling within the feminine system through bouts of hysteria. And then here I say melancholy especially has been attached to hysteria. This can be caused, think about melancholy for you as a woman. It can be caused by just your cycle of ovulation, your menstruation, your natural flow of creation. Those are the in our origin of design, natural things. We're not even in this moment taking into account what's in her exterior realm. The deeper melancholy is depression or suppression. And whenever I touch those words, I see them as depression, depressing, pressing something down. Suppression almost feels like suppressing, right? Like suffocating something within the energy body, which is directly linked to physical manifestation, materialization, sensation. We'll get to that. Depression or suppression of her energy, her sex, her voice, her magic, her creativity, all of which link directly to the feminine sexual energy held within the womb or uterus. And so at its core, hysteria, we're watching these dots be connected. And if you want to look in the body where hysteria, the signature of hysteria, the cause of what is true expressions of hysteria, energy that must come through, it originates at the womb. Our sexual energy, our creative energy, our signature of being woman, and what we birth into this world. And so we come full circle here, back to the uterus. What the ancients misinterpreted was that something was wrong with the uterus that needed to be corrected in very unpleasant ways. In truth, the natural and organic feminine expression that originates in the womb is primordial, before time, pure in its essence and frequency and expression, and essential to overall feminine health. And I'm talking health on every level: spiritual, emotional, physical, sexual, nervous system, all of the things. The natural and organic feminine expression that originates in the womb, the center of our sexual and creative energy. So while it was connected to her uterus, the true underlying patterning was an absence of full primordial feminine expression. The womb is designed for sexual pleasure, intimate and intuitive creation, feminine magic, and a mystical connection to all life. Mother energy is valid and present here. However, simply forcing or luring a woman into motherhood, as we've talked about, okay, these single women and these widows, the problem is they don't have a man. We could tease that apart and find the true pieces of truth. However, the way that it was coming through and being enacted and enforced was not that pure tone of the masculine and the feminine coming together. So forcing her or luring her into motherhood, or even her own chosen entry into motherhood, is not always enough to open these channels of her true sensuality, spiritual intuition, and supernatural creation. You can't just make a woman a mother and that's going to be the cure. So if we look in the vestiges of history, it didn't stop what we understand as hysteria. And what we understand as hysteria is still highly present on this planet today, both in the extreme sense and also in the everyday woman who has not been initiated into understanding her own feminine edge and knowing how to answer and respond to and engage and create and make love with that when it calls. That's in the now. And so here at this junction, we enter into this, like I literally saw a cauldron, this sort of mixture of these pieces throughout time and history is her relationship with her own mother and with other feminine beings in her world, with herself as woman, a highly mystical and sexual creature, and the capacity for powerful conception, birthing, and nourishment of new life. This also weaves into these energetics of hysteria. Hysteria, as we know it, may be prompted by a disconnect from within or without, or a combination of the two, of the full potency of feminine sexuality. This includes her creative juice, as well as the massive depth of her capacity for sheer pleasure, orgasm, intimacy, expression, practice of magic, being a mother, making love, etc. Creativity. The feminine body is designed to open, hold, and birth immense pleasure portals that become mystical in nature, inexplicable, unable to be defined when expressed through her. This results in love, art, beauty, voice, connection, magic, relationship, intimacy. As her depth and power for pleasure has been quieted, subdued, silenced, murdered through time, her highly potent feminine life force becomes depleted, hijacked, suppressed, hysterical. It becomes hysterical, not grounded in her body, not felt and known and created in partnership with, not gifting new life into the world, but over the edge, uncontrollable and hysterical. Now take a moment with me. Imagine your most intimate, highly erotic, pleasurable moment in sexual connection. And I'm inviting you to do this as I speak it. Imagine your most intimate, highly erotic, pleasurable moment in sexual connection. Whether you've lived that and you're calling it to memory, or you have not and you imagine, or have every woman has some knowing in our body of what this is. We have a remembrance. We have an innate relationship with it, whether we are conscious of that or not. So as you're imagining, remembering, connecting with this energetic signature, the sounds, the sensation, the liquids, the sheer ecstasy that is birthed and circulated in your feminine system at that moment. And I will add, it cannot help but be moved through you into the world, whether that's with a partner, on your own, in your creativity. But for this moment, stay with sexual pleasure, because we're going to really amplify it. Close your eyes and take yourself right there. Deepen into the energy pulsing through your body. How alive you feel at this moment of intense pleasure. The oxytocin being produced and circulated within your system. The urge, the need, the compelling must within you, the I must, it must move through you, that urge to moan, to cry out, to arch your back, move your body, and amplify the intensity of pleasure, divinity, connection that you feel in this moment. Now move your attention down into your body, as though you're looking within your body, and notice the electric charge running through you, the awakened state of your cells. Laser focus your attention even more to just one cell. One cell. Bring all of your awareness right here to this place. Feel the full power of sensation, pleasure, erotic charge, and supernatural intimacy in just one cell. Perhaps on the tip of your finger, in the curve of your belly, or along the fleshy fullness of your hip. Focus on just one cell, so micro, and yet the intensity of your own pleasure and ecstasy feels macro, cosmic, massive in one cell. This is the origin of feminine hysteria. This unexpressed sensation, experience, embodiment of pleasure. You can open your eyes and come back now. Notice, however, how the energy continues to vibrate in your system. To feel this depth of luxurious ecstasy and pleasure, to experience this immensity of love bursting in your body and energy, in your heart, to feel your vagina pulse, opening with desire and the expectation of being met, penetrated, mated. All of this is the fuel beneath the energy of hysteria. When a woman is not connected on all levels to her own pleasure, when her nervous system cannot hold the full charge of her own pleasure, when she fears the magic that runs through her, when she quiets the power of her own voice, there will be a buildup of energy that must come through her. Imagine the women who were considered hysterical. The sounds, the intensity of aggressions, the delirium of mystical experiences, the disconnect from her own sensory system. The origin of her hysteria is primordial, imbued into the true essence, design, expression, and potency of being woman, of just being woman. Everything I've shared, at its core, it's about being woman. Unhindered. There's a word I want that I can't quite get. Uninhibited. That's the word. Uninhibited. There's no inhibition around being the woman you are. Full expression. A sexual partner and sexual expression is not enough. She must connect and activate her own powers of conception, birthing, and nourishment. These, again, are feminine magics. And here's one more disclaimer. In no way, I love men, I love my husband, I love making love with him, I love that we together created 3 phenomenal humans. So I am not discrediting or discharging or dismembering the presence of the masculine. And that is not what we are speaking about here. I want to be crystal clear. I'm going to read that again. A sexual partner and just sexual expression is not enough. She must connect and activate her own powers of conception, birthing, and nourishment. These, again, are feminine magics. Energy and impact that live beyond the ordinary physical plane. The hysterical woman was hungry. She was hungry. How often? For my own self, over and over again through the years, I'm so hungry for this or that. Sometimes literal food, sometimes intimacy, sometimes creation, sometimes sexuality, sometimes connection with others, sometimes the presence of God filling my entire being. I'm hungry. The hysterical woman was hungry to feel, fully, sensate, sensual within her being, to live, to express, to orgasm, to make love, to create, to sing. Somewhere in what I read, there was something about her not singing. Whether they were trying to get her to sing or not, I don't recall. This energy is edgy by all accounts. It's edgy in our time now, even more so in a Puritan or highly religious and controlled period of time in our history. We carry the residues of that. That does not excuse us. It actually calls us to clear it. It remains true in our time that full and pure feminine expression is taboo, first and foremost, within the woman herself. One more disclosure. This is not at all in relationship with the world of feminism and the projection of energy, aggression, entitlement. That's not what I'm talking about in terms of feminine expression. This is much deeper, much more ancient. This signature of feminine energy is innate, natural, and organic to the true signature, design, blueprint of feminine energy. When it goes untouched, remains dormant, and is unable to express, it can come through as depression, aggression, frustration, over sexualization, under sexualization, as in frigidity, silencing, disconnect, numbness, the taboo of your own feminine expression, the place you fear and judge it most. Even if you only witness that in your fear and judgment of other women. This is where your personal, true feminine power lies. Living in fear of the taboo desires, those desires you feel aren't safe, they might ruin your marriage, they might affect your job, they might upset your husband, they might harm your children, they might expose you. Living in fear of your taboo desires will create a hysteria within the feminine system. The feminine edge represents the high voltage of pure feminine energy running through her system, liberated in its expression, clear in its grounded creation. Woof. I've had shivers and sweaty pits a few times. When this energy is ungrounded, it becomes a live wire circuit, oozing electric charge all over the place. When this energy is untapped, it becomes a depression of creative juice and feminine life force. Hysteria, in its true form, originates from a suppression of life force. The edge is in truth the presence of the metaphorical double-edged sword. The feminine used her sword to ground energies upon and in partnership with the earth. When she wields it, it is in the movements to cut away and purify, as did Kali with her truth and passion. It's not very often spoken about, but years ago when I encountered Kali in the mystical sense, and I did a lot of studying and reading and spent a very intimate weekend with her, I learned that the energy of mother is also connected to Kali. When you weave that in here as part of that pure feminine creation and birthing and conceiving and then nourishing life with her love and her passion and her truth, you understand how even today's teachings of Kali are a little hysterical, right? A little over the edge. As my mother would say. I remember my mother saying many times when I was a child, Jacqueline, you're over the edge. You're a little over the edge. Primordial feminine sexual and creative energy is high voltage, the likes of which are very rare in full physical presence and energetic expression on our planet, even now. Even now, we're not just talking about lifetimes ago. We're talking about the impact of hysteria and sensations of being hysterical. Because let's face it, a woman in the throes of sexual ecstasy looks pretty hysterical from an emotional standpoint. She looks, and probably from within, it feels out of touch with reality because it's not our usual everyday physical state of being. And it has a piece of feeling out of control. And yet, we deeply hunger for it and crave the liberated expression that is grounded in its circuitry, in our body and in our system, and in our capacity to hold immense pleasure that leads to creation. Ultimately, the creation of more love. Last bit. As we evolve and change, this energy must be awakened, activated, anointed, and expressed within the feminine collective, as well as with more and more expansion and depth on an individual level. And this is the charge I leave you with. How are you dialoguing and engaging with your own feminine edge? That high voltage charge organically built into your feminine system by divinity. Is she caged? Do you know her? Do you fear her? And will you choose to claim her because she is you? Thank you. That completes my time of teaching. And so let me see. Let me get back here. And I'm going to leave the computer as it is and look on my phone and respond to any comments that you might have. Okay. Many. Thank you. Thank you for the comments on my new haircut. I'm starting to love it. Rebecca, this is landing at a perfect time. I love you. I love you, and I'm so glad, Rebecca. Hello, Michelle. Hi, Kim. Maraja, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. You said, yes, I know that feeling. I'm not sure which feeling you're talking to, but I'm not at all surprised you understand. Vladimir, what does that mean? Can you summarize and simplify what you mean by edge and hysteria? So if you're not already familiar with it, you can Google hysteria. Hysteria was a state of being that women through history were penalized for, were institutionalized for, were given treatment for, because there are many facets to this, as I said. So I'm just going to simplify it in this moment in response to your question, because the feminine expression in some cases was just too much. It was too much. How I am linking that to the edge is, if you imagine the phrase, a woman on the edge, or something that is at an edge, When we stand at an edge point, there's a level of excitement and anxiety and tension in the body. But if it's right for us to, let's say, jump, then the only way we get to that next level of human evolution and expression and liberation in the feminine system is to take the jump, is to take the leap, is to meet the edge. And this will happen again and again and again in the course of a woman's life, because we are continuously being initiated more and more deeply into the truth of who we are. And that's amplified right now by the energetic signature in the cosmos that is activating our planet. That's not a super simple answer. So I hope that helps. Let's see. Any guidance to manage the feelings of hysteria, rage, depression? Yes, more expression, more allowance of your woman. And in many cases, it's not sometimes when, certainly for myself, when I would have heard this over probably 5 years ago, even 3 years ago, 2 years ago, more expression. I would look within, look for the expression, try to pull it up and out. It's an organic expression. It's not a forcing. And I would say, Sue, this is partnered with grounded energy. If we're just trying to express up here, eventually that is going to take on a signature of even low level hysteria. If we only are living in the ecstasy, and there's so many layers. There's the ecstasy and there's the trying to produce, trying to express, trying to move it. We must move down into a grounded, rooted, understanding the internal structures of our woman, not just the ecstasies. It's more complex than I can answer in this moment, but that's what I will give you. Maraja, I'm so glad that I pronounced it correctly. Summer, mwah, thank you, love you. Maraja, do you mind sharing a practical example of what harnessing this surge of energy would look like versus acting out in frustration, anger, hysteria, and misdirecting the energy? Let's see, harnessing this surge of energy. So you said versus acting out in frustration, anger, hysteria, and misdirecting the energy. I'm going to really oversimplify this. Maraja asked that. Yes. Maraja, I'm going to oversimplify this. Here's an easy example. When all of that is bubbling, go outside and get your feet on the earth. Walk in nature. It will help to stabilize the energy. Stability is a word that landed 3 times in one day for me last week. And I began to sense within my own psyche and subconscious, and it actually made me weepy, that there was a buried, not conscious to my thinking mind, sensation of not knowing throughout many, many years, my childhood and many years of my life, what true stability is. And I mean stability in my system that felt like I could exhale and know I was taken care of. I was good. I was safe and protected, and I could let go. This feels like a key piece to it, this stability. Where in your system do you know you have stability? Because if you think about making love, the most exquisite experiences of making love with the deepest expression are when, as a woman in the feminine, we can really let go because our energy is stabilized. Sometimes that's in relationship to the man. Certainly, that is a piece of it. But also, there's a piece that is within our own space of ownership to understand how to self stabilize. So stability enters here as a piece of an anecdote to the hysteria that does not serve, if that makes sense. Okay. I think that's everybody. You're welcome, Sue. You're welcome, Maraja. I think I got it, at least from what I can see, I've answered all comments. So again, if you're watching the replay and you want to make a note, I will happily come back and respond. And thank you all for being right here, and those of you who were here live. This is a very complex signature of energy in the feminine system, and so much more to come. Thank you.